Again,
Slick 50 Advanced Formula engine treatment. The only engine treatment proven in the lab and on the street. Well, we have got 3 winter scenarios we're dealing with. One is the cold and snow in the northeast. The other is the cold and the snow in the northwest. And the rest of it's the cold in between. We'll get around to telling you all about all of that here in a second. Look at all the snow we've seen. Since Friday morning, we had an area of low pressure move out of the Midwest across the Great Lakes into New England this evening. And right now, we've been seeing our most steady accumulations just downwind here of Erie around the Buffalo area. Some places have been reporting anywhere from 6 to 10 inches of snowfall. But that area of low pressure is beginning to wind down somewhat, and the snow is tapering off. However, this one low pressure system is going to be very persistent in its location here in Ontario, and that is going to keep those lake effect winds picking up the snow. So downwind of Michigan and Superior and Erie and Ontario, that's where we're going to find the snow continuing to fall. This area of low pressure is beginning to lift on out, and so the snow is tapering off somewhat, and a lot of the precipitation has wound down. So that's the good news. But it looks like still parts of down east Maine are going to see some of the heavier snows, and then downwind here of Ontario and again Erie, that's where we're going to find the heaviest accumulations. Even up around parts of the upper peninsula, some heavy snows are expected to continue. So this is our one winter storm, and it's also been bringing some rain down through parts of the Carolinas and northern Georgia, I should say southern Georgia and northern Florida. And then this is our other winter storm with the rain and the snow. We'll get around to looking at that in a second, but in between, high pressure has allowed a lot of cold air to work its way all the way down into the Lone Star State and the Gulf Coast region. Temperatures were running much cooler than what they should be for this time of year. I mean, we're talking a high of 31 in Dallas today, or we're only talking 16 in St. Louis, or below 0 there in Minneapolis, St. Paul with a temperature of 1. That was the high. We're cooling down now to -4, so below 0, teens, 20s. It's freezing all the way down toward the Gulf Coast. Notice, though, that Florida is still on the mild side. Well, you take the cold air and you put in some very gusty winds, 20, 30, 40-mile-an-hour winds, and you get some nasty, nasty wind chills. Certainly at night you don't want to be outdoors by any means when we're talking -20, -30. And you know what? It's not just the east, too. It's also the interior sections of the northwest that are seeing the cold air and the bitter wind chills. Here's the front, though. As it moves on shore and that southerly flow continues, we'll start to see things eventually warming.
Certainly feels colder, but let's take a look at why. First of all, we want to make some comparisons. This is what it looked like last Sunday. An inch or more of snow on the ground from North Dakota back into the UP of Michigan and northern New England. This Sunday, quite a different story, a much larger area dealing with snow cover from the Dakotas back to Missouri through the Ohio Valley and into the Northeast. Let's take a look at why it feels so much colder when we have snow on the ground. We've got solar radiation coming in. Some of it is actually used to melt the snow, but most of it is reflected back, a very reflective surface here. So the result is that there's not much energy left over to warm the air, so the air warms very slowly. The result for the Great Lakes region and on into the Northeast, you're going to see some very cold temperatures through midweek in the areas where you're dealing with snow cover.
Yeah, Christina, it's been a very strange year so far winter-wise in the West. We haven't seen a whole lot of